September 27th, 2022. And I'm on my way to the Porsche dealership near me. If you saw the short I did yesterday, the car is running very well. The dashboard is in, the instrument binnacle's in, the odometer is working, the speedometer's working, so I rebuilt that okay. The trip odometer resets, we're good there. All of the switches work, save for the driving lights. We're not sure what's going on there. The switch works, but with everything else I got to do, that's a low priority because I do have headlights and everything else. A couple of lessons learned putting this back together. I normally do a very good job of organizing everything, all the bolts and everything. I don't know what I was thinking when we took this apart. I had Ziploc bags, but they weren't really labeled. I kept everything in the hatch, and fast forward 4 months, and it's a total disaster. We wasted more time trying to figure out what bolt goes where. So, classic example of why you need to organize your bolts and document where they're going. Take the time, it'll save it for you in the long run. That was lesson 1. Lesson 2 was do a better job of aligning the steering wheel, marking it before you pull it out. The marks I put in, you see earlier videos, I did mark the steering wheel, but for whatever reason they wore away and we were kind of lost. We wasted an hour and a half yesterday for 2 things on the steering wheel. First was the alignment, but then the copper, it's probably brass or something, the spring that runs the clock spring to operate the horn was slightly bent. I'm lucky I didn't damage that because that would have been a $300 piece to replace the whole turn signal assembly. We could have saved easily an hour not screwing around, pulling the steering wheel 3 or 4 times to get the alignment right and rebolting it up. It's fine now. It's where it should be. So all is good there. If you saw the teaser video, the console is sitting right next to me right now. However, I've got a lot of work to do. We repinned all of the switches. When you get these switches, they don't have they have the 4 wires and they have the blade clips, the female side of the blade clips that go in. You have to use the original plastic connectors. Not a big deal. And I thought I rewired them properly, but when we went to plug it in and try it, not only did we burn the fuse, but we burned we think the relay's bad because now neither one of the power windows work. On the passenger side, we were having problems with that, intermittent problems with it working. When we pulled that switch, the pins out of that switch, the black lead to that, there's a black, a green, a red, and brown. The black lead, the pigtail for that was, the blade for that was almost disintegrated. So that tells me we had a bad ground on the passenger side switch. Good news. Bad news is we go to plug these in and they're not working. Worst news is we tried to take the 35-year-old relay out to try and check that, and it literally was very difficult to get out. It was typical with the board on this car, and we damaged the relay. So now we're forced to go buy one, and that's where I'm off to on the Porsche dealership. I looked online, and Roger at 928 or us does not carry the part. At least it's not listed on the website. And when I went to Pelican, it says a 1.5 week lead time. That's a red flag to me that they're just going to order it from Porsche directly and then get it into their warehouse in California before they send it to me. So I'm going to my local Porsche dealership to order it. This is the relay. So in addition to blowing out a 30 amp fuse, we damaged this relay, and you can kind of see the boards broken on the back. It's pretty elaborate inside this that runs the relay. Well, that didn't go well. It looks like I'm going to have to order from Tim, the manager, parts manager, Flemington Porsche. He can't even get the part. As luck would have it, when I was at the dealership, the battery on my camera crapped out, so I couldn't finish what I was saying. Suffice it to say, the Porsche dealership couldn't get it locally. He said there was one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I called the Porsche dealership there. It had already been shipped out. I eliminated 928s or us couldn't do it. Pelican Parts doesn't have an ETA on it. I found another website I've seen so I started looking for a used one on eBay and came across a company called Dr. 911 and in Canada, Calgary, Alberta. I put in an order. Their website says it's in stock, so I went ahead and ordered it. There's a 2-hour delay there, and so far the order says it's still processing. There's no phone number I can call them directly at. So this first impressions are everything. I hope they walk their talk, and it's just not showing, and that they're just not showing it as a tease, and then telling me later that the part's out of stock. So I will provide an update in a future video if they don't come through. If they don't have the part, I don't have power windows. It's as simple as that. I am going to move forward with getting the wiring in and trying to get the console in and assume that my wiring is okay and move forward from that. So that's the situation with the power window relay. I don't know whether I can jumper out the power relay and try to get the driver's side window up so at least they're shut. So I really can't drive the car with the window down all the time. The last few minutes of this video, I'm going to focus in on how we reassembled everything. Nick and I on Friday, and Robert, Nick, and I on Monday. Before Nick got here on Friday, I had never gotten around to steam cleaning the dashboard area. And so here I am using my McCulloch steam cleaner. It really did a lot to eliminate whatever that smell was. Probably the mice living in this. But I went through and thoroughly steamed this to sterilize everything and get it ready. If you've been following along, you know I ordered a Blaupunk Bremen retro radio for the center console to replace the aftermarket radio that somebody else had put in that's not really working. So I figured while I was rebuilding the dash, it just made sense to put in a nice period correct radio, but offers Bluetooth capability. So I realized with the dashboard out, now was the time to put in the microphone for the Bluetooth capability. Anyway, you see in my lap there is the A-pillar on the driver's side. We removed both A-pillars and started accessing the trim, the headliner from the top to snake the microphone. You can see it kind of hanging there. All right, now with the microphone in, everything cleaned up, we went ahead to put the dashboard in. Here we are. So here we're just fitting it into place, making sure everything fits, getting the wires to clear. And then once we were satisfied with that, it looked pretty good in place. So now it was a matter of putting the 4 bolts in that install this. So there's 2 on the top and then 2 on the lower side. This is the toughest of the 4 to get to. And you can see me in the left side here literally using my phone to try and locate the bolt so that I have my bearings straight. And if you watch the disassembly video, but here's the bar that runs across, safety bar that runs across the dash, and then here I am trying to get, Nick is lifting the dash as we try to put it in, but we eventually got that. Now on the other side, similar situation, putting in the bolt to hold that in. It's much easier on this side. You see me removing the heater hose that connects to the side of the dash. I just pulled that, ended up pulling that out. That's the glove box right there. Now I'm showing it, I'm fighting it here, but there you see it on the other side. Very similar situation where now it's actually the other nut, but I'm tightening it to the dashboard, the frame to the dashboard. So with that in, now is a matter of putting back in the 3 cap screws that hold the steering wheel assembly in so that we can get it nice and rigid to do the rest of the install. If you watched me in this earlier video when we took this apart, we actually had to drill these out. And luckily the local Lowe's had those bolts. They're very similar. One, they're M6 by, I think, 1 inch. So we were able to do that and get the thing to lock down. See me just tightening those down with an Allen screw as tight as I can get it. If you watch videos from one of my videos from almost a year ago, I was trying to troubleshoot the light switch. I ended up buying a new light switch on the 928 dash. The 5, so you have 5 switches that are in the instrument pod: the light switch, the fog light switch, the odometer reset, the 4-way flasher, and the defroster. The wiring for each of those comes into a connector. So it's a connector that holds the wires in with their pins, and then the blades of the switch itself fit into that connector. Unfortunately, I was running into reliability trouble with the connector where all of these wires, there's 10 wires that go into the light switch. And so I ended up using shrink tape and just putting the blades directly into the light switch. So I had to redo that. It worked very well when I did this, I don't know, 6 months, a year ago. So we tried putting that connector back in. It did not work. We wasted a lot of time doing that. Lesson learned was just go ahead, plug it directly into the switch, and use shrink wrap to make sure everything's not only secure to the light switch. So here I am just using a heat gun to Nurse Nancy's hair dryer, my heat gun. I put shrink tape on each of the 10 leads, and here I am just shrinking those down, and it's a nice professional looking finish to it that I know is going to work very well. So with the dashboard fastened down, the steering wheel now clamped down back into its position, it was time to put the instrument binnacle back into place. And there's 4 connectors on this. And you see me putting those back in. Now, there's a shot. You'll notice that right where to the right of the voltmeter, you'll see that piece that juts out. And there is what you see are 2 chrome, what look like washers on the top and bottom, just in front of my right hand. The bolt to hold the instrument pod goes through those 2 bushings, and there's actually an escutcheon on either side where the bolt connects to the leather covered pod, and that's what holds the instrument panel to the binnacle. We ended up, these bushings are actually 2 different pieces, and on the left side in particular, it kept falling out. So I ended up using electrical tape to tape the 2 together on either side, and that ended up holding the bushings in place so that I could get the bolts through. So a little tip for you if you're going to reinstall this. There's 4 connectors that go into the ribbon in various places. Now you see me trying to fit. Now with that loosely in place, I could put the dash pod in. You flip it up. You see all of the switches are in. That 6th one is for the ignition key. And it's a matter of trying to slowly work this in. And you got to adjust and try to move it. And I will say this as I was doing this. We lost a lot of time trying to put the switches in, and then we didn't have enough room. We had to take the pod out. I think we went through this iteration about 3 or 4 times. Suffice it to say, what I recommend doing is, on the left side of the pod, put the driver's side light switch back in first, then the fog light switch in the middle, and then the odometer switch at the bottom. Similarly, on the right side, that gives you enough room then to put in the 4-way flasher and the defroster button, and then you can put the pod back onto the instrument cluster. We tried it all different ways, and we wasted a lot of time here doing that. So that'll save you a lot of time trying to follow that procedure. I finally got, after a lot of work and actually stopping for lunch and coming back, I was able to get this bolt in on the right side to hold the instrument binnacle. The other side's a fairly straightforward shot. The trouble with a lot of these projects, you get in the thick of it, you forget about the cameras and how you're trying to capture everything. So I didn't get a lot of all the action I wanted to, and I'm under this time crunch to try and keep moving. So there's a balance here. If you're like me, what I highly recommend is Renlist is a great resource. There's a lot of good write-ups on this, on how to take the instrument binnacle off, how to reinstall it. I think a combination of that, along with a couple of other videos out there, you can triangulate all of this information and be able to do this job yourself. Power window relay aside, I am very pleased with the results of the dash pod and the instrument cluster. So now that that's in, I'm able to drive the car. When we first took the car out yesterday, Nick and I, if you watched that video, the engine, it had a noisy lifter. And today, I'm pleased to report that when I was driving around, it must have got a little sticky there after sitting for 3 or 4 months. It must have had a lifter get sticky from sitting for 4 months. Now that I've been driving around, that's not even an issue. So it's pumped up, and engine's nice and quiet, plenty of power. Love the sound of I just love the sound of this when you hear it. So if you haven't watched that driving video, I strongly encourage you to do so. If not to listen to me, but listen to the sound of the engine as I'm driving. So as soon as I get this video up, I'm off to the races again to work on the console. There is a lot of wiring that needs to be. Even though I steam cleaned everything in the console area, there's a lot of wiring that needs to be redone, mainly for the radio, but also for some of the ancillary stuff. Some mice did get in there and chew some things, so I've got to figure out the wiring. Not only for the power window switches, the wiper is working fine. I've got to rehook up the, so I'm going to get those wired in properly, get everything put together. So the next video will be how I reinstalled the console into the car. And this project, once I do that, will be pretty much done, and I can move on to some other things. Appreciate you following along. We're almost there. The great news is the car is very drivable, but I'd like to get it back to full interior and really want to get that radio in. So stay tuned. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like button. And if you add a comment or two, that helps the algorithm as well. We're now over 1,000 subscribers, so I do appreciate that. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing. And stay tuned for some video coming up later on this week. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.